All right, good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. It's 8 a.m. here. Price of Bitcoin currently at 54.57, and this is per Bybit Exchange, okay? So we're going to go over today a few things. Number one, we're obviously going to go over what has happened and transpired over price action the last, pretty much, the last day or so, okay? And then we're going to discuss how we're going to sort of move forward in terms of which exchanges we're looking at, because all the exchanges are out of whack right now, okay? Uh, you know, Bitfinex has a high premium right now. I think it's at $5,700. Coinbase right now is at 55.70. Bybit is at 54.80, and BitMEX is currently at 54.60. So BitMEX and Bybit are, I guess, pretty close to each other. But yesterday, obviously, we know that BitMEX essentially went down for quote unquote maintenance, right? And there was just a lot of controversy around that. And I want to explain some of what I personally think happened and what I do think that's happening in the current markets. Okay. So I did a video for my Advantage members yesterday. I actually did two videos, and I've been constantly giving updates. And we've been really just fortunate to be on the right side of this market while everyone has been trying to catch the knife and trying to go long for so many different levels, right? And just basically getting their hands chopped off. Okay, while we have been, in here just destroying the market and taking tons of profits over and over again in our short positions. Okay, so, for the most part, I mean, again, if you are watching these videos and you are, someone who has not been able to get on the right side of the market, or unfortunately just losing money, come join Cryptosomniac, folks. I can only urge you guys so much and make so many of these videos until you convince yourself that these videos are something that you really look forward to, and you wish that you got more attention in terms of asking questions, a community that you can talk to and discuss just the way we do over here. We put out tons of articles. We look at so many different metrics, so many different people from so many different backgrounds that provide great content. One of our members, Inception, Crypto Life, these guys really just stay in the community, and they want to help and show their insight and share their insight. Okay. And this is what's so great about the community. Everyone is looking at the technicals, people are looking at different factors, different indicators. And so you basically now have an army of people who are trying to get, essentially everyone to the right course of action, right? In terms of what price action could do. And more often than not, okay, again, more often than not, we are usually on the right side of the trend. Okay, and we may not be able to catch the right side of the trade every time, but usually we're on the right side of the trend. We're not making severe mistakes. We're not, trying to long when the market was aggressively falling like this, right? I don't think we took, maybe a single long from way up here. We took one long, I think, over here, maybe closed it like at break even, and then that was pretty much it. Okay, but then for the most part, from way back here, okay, from way back here, we've had a short bias, right? I explained it in my video yesterday. Okay, we've basically had a short bias from this movement down right here, okay? This movement down where we start to realize that it looks like, things are starting to crack. Actually, maybe it was like this movement down. But anyway, one of those movements down, we start to realize that, hey, it looks like, maybe the bullish movement is cracking, and we might be looking for a sell-off. Now, no one really knew we were going to sell off to, 5,000 or 4,000 or 3,000. That's just a bunch of bullshit if people tell you that. But these were levels we were looking out for, right? So I can tell you with, all honesty, that one of the levels that we were looking out for was on the weekly chart, 200 moving average. Okay, 200 moving average was the first level we were looking out for. And as you can see, right now, we're actually sitting on the 200 weekly moving average just right above it. Just right above it, okay? We pierced almost, $2,000 lower than the 200 moving average, okay? So basically everyone got liquidated, way down here. I mean, if there's someone out there who's giving you bull crap about, they knew this was going to happen, they had some bids down here, I highly doubt it. Maybe they got lucky, market buying somewhere down here, but even BitMEX was broken. Bybit was, plus and minus $300-400 like every 2 seconds. So like, how the heck did you get in anyway? You know, there was just so much trouble across many exchanges because they were just unprepared for something like this. And I want to talk about the unpreparedness of what's going on. Okay. Now, if you've been watching my videos for the last few days, something that I've been talking about quite a bit is that the coronavirus is really just a smaller symptom of what the systemic issue is in the global macroeconomic environments. Okay, number one being, especially because I'm from the U.S., I understand U.S. economy and U.S. politics much more than I do about, say, the U.K. or any other country. Maybe India a little bit. Okay, but for the most part, what I could tell you about America is we are a very debt and credit-driven society. Okay, that's a fact, right? That's a fact. Okay, so what that does is because we are such a debt and credit-driven society, okay, it essentially makes us these crack addicts, these drug addicts, where we need stimulus, we need bailouts, even when we keep fucking up over and over again, just like we did in 2008, 2009, and just like how we're doing right now. Okay, we are basically creating a bigger bubble right now, or rather, maybe the bubble is essentially popping right now, and now you're really starting to see the results, right? So one of the things that I talk about often is, if we look at this, the S&P 500, okay, you know, now that I have a bigger context of how things look now, okay, maybe the Dow Jones is a little bit better because you could see clearly the way the distribution was playing out. Okay, so in my experience, right, the way it looks to me is maybe this whole movement right here was probably a larger form of distribution. Okay, this to me was a deviation and um, just a shakeout. This movement was also a deviation, a shakeout, but to the upside, right? This often happens in distributions. Okay, the reason it happens in distributions is because you need to weed out players on both sides of the market so the bigger professionals can get out of the market properly. Whether it's on the downside, right? People who are aggressively, say longing, okay, those people need to get weeded out of their positions right there. And then once the prices move back up, you have people who FOMOed into this whole movement right here, and then people who probably just kept aggressively shorting on the way up, and then they just got destroyed, and then eventually you then just see a waterfall effect like that. Okay, now again, I could be completely wrong, right? For all I know, this is a black swan event, and we're going to do a V style recovery over the next week or month, right? It's possible, but is it likely? Not really. Okay. And the reason, again, I don't say that lightly, right? I don't say that V-shaped recoveries are unlikely, in a just flippant manner. Okay. The reason I'm saying that it's unlikely that we get a V-shaped recovery is because we have not solved a few things. Number one, we have not contained what started this all, the trigger, which is the coronavirus, right? The panic, um, you know, our hospitals are underprepared. The panic is still out there. Businesses are being affected. Many events across the world have gotten canceled. Okay, so it's already being, factored and priced into the economies across the world. Especially with smaller businesses, larger businesses, they've taken a large hit. Okay, there's no doubt about it. Now the question is, has the larger hit right now been factored into where we are? Or are we still bracing more of an impact on the economy for the days and weeks ahead? And that means the economy, especially the stock market, is going to keep factoring that in lower and lower, right? Because if you haven't contained the coronavirus and you still see events getting canceled, and you still see businesses being impacted, and you still see, maybe people getting laid off, or people not going out for, shopping or eating out or whatever, right? It's almost obvious that the economy at large will get impacted, and that means the stock market will get impacted. And if the stock market keeps going down, obviously, that means our precious Bitcoin will undoubtedly keep going down. Okay, I think the case of the safe haven has pretty much so far been eliminated. Okay, I don't think any person out there right now, whether you're a hedge fund or an institution, is looking at this asset as, hey, I want to be able to buy this and hope for a 20K, 100K future for the prices. Okay, it's just a fact. It could recover in the next maybe a few months, but again, I think the overall hype that Bitcoin had, say maybe in 2016, 17, 18, I think it's abundantly clear that that hype has pretty much died down. It's visible across, say, keywords searched, right, all over the world. It's visible across, time span of the last 2 or 3 years, where we haven't really seen a significant usage of crypto, or even blockchain for that matter, right? So I think what's becoming clear is that this industry, especially major assets like maybe Ethereum and Ripple and all these, I think they're on their last dying legs. Okay, that's personally what I think. Now, when it comes to Bitcoin, I mean, I think Bitcoin has a far better usage than, say, Ethereum or XRP or other crypto assets out there. Okay, but even then, right, with the highest volume asset, the largest market cap asset, if you see, a 50% drop, folks, I'm talking about a 50% drop right there, 53% drop in a day. And this was basically a span of a day, right? I mean, I'm talking about an aggregate 24-hour cycle, okay? Obviously, it was spread out over 2 daily candles, but it was still pretty much a day, okay? If you see a 50% drop in a day, this is not an asset that most people want to mess around with. That's just a fact, okay? I can, as a trader, tell you that we love volatility, but damn, I do not love that much volatility. This is just insanity, okay? So when you see something like this with a 50% drop, especially when you see the underlying asset, which is the dollar, right, being depreciated as it goes down, that tells me that clearly maybe the world may not be ready for it yet. Maybe it's still in price discovery, because remember, okay, folks, Bitcoin works the same way whether it's $100 or 100,000. So it doesn't really make it any more appealing as an asset for its usage, its purpose of its usage, right? If it's higher or lower price. So most people are going to say that, well, if it's the same price, and the same usage for the same price, whether it's 100,000 or $100, then why is it that I want to pay $5,500 or so? And then you can start making the argument about supply and demand. You can start making the argument about, um, you know, there's mining costs associated with it. It's a speculative asset. It could be a safe haven in the future. It's an electronic digital asset. Any argument that you want to make, it's there. Okay, but just because the argument is there and the debate is there doesn't mean it. Doesn't mean anything, right? I mean, does that mean that um, hedge funds or institutions across the board are going to want to buy it? Because it's such a speculative asset, right? Not really, right? I mean, it's just kind of, now it's become sort of a meme that, people are now just making fun of this being a safe haven asset. So once you've sort of started making fun of the very thing that you were at one time hoping and being prideful about, that means people in general, even the space who trade it, have lost hope, right? And even if prices say climb back to say 6,000 or 7,000, it doesn't really change what happened in this event right here, which was when the global markets were collapsing. Bitcoin sold off like the shitcoin it is. right? And I'm not calling it a shitcoin. I'm just saying that is how it is perceived now. Okay. So going forward, what we may need to look for is not the all-time highs or new high prices, but we need to trade it as is. We need to trade it in terms of technicals, and not look forward to the future of, hey, this could go much higher, break all-time highs or break even previous highs like the one we had in 2019. We need to trade it as an asset that just moves in terms of technicals, and that's it. Okay, that is how I'm going to be positioned in our advantage side. All right, going forward. Okay. Now, with that being said, on the advantage side, we're starting to deploy a couple different things. Okay. Number one, we have Forex analysis and chat coming up April 1st, options as well as oil. So if you are looking to be able to discuss and trade, share your analysis, come join our community and you can learn about these new asset classes, because now we're not going to be just crypto focused. Okay. We made a pivotal decision of including equities analysis, I think in February, and I'm really glad we did that, because Faisal, our analyst, has been providing fantastic updates, since February, right? And he's been giving us a rundown of exactly how the assets are looking, how things are, shaping up in the economy and the stock markets. So if you want to read and learn from people such as Faisal and myself, how we look at this market, how we trade it, how we make money for a living trading these markets, come join Cryptosomniac Advantage, folks. There's a link in the description below. You can join the Discord channel. You can go to cryptosomniac.com and go to the products page and sign up for the Advantage membership. And you will get these equities analysis updates. You will get my morning videos. You will get my Bitcoin analysis updates. You'll get these leverage trades that you just saw. I mean, we made an absolute killing yesterday. And this was like the easiest money made, because while everyone tried to catch the knife, going down, it was just so easy to short the market. I mean, shorting the market was by far some of the easiest things that you could do, right? So the point is that I'm really happy for my members, as you saw. The gains reviews have just been stacking up since February, since that top. And I want to show you guys one more thing, okay? Now, I try to stay as humble as I can, but this is one thing that I wanted to show you guys. Okay, here is June 26, 2019. Okay, this was, and I want to show you guys a date. Okay, this is exactly what happened. And I know everyone talks about, not being able to sell the top and stuff, but I want to show you guys that this is my experience of how I've been trading 11 years in the market paying off. Okay. The reason I understand topping and bottoming cycles is because I know how to read the markets from a technical perspective and from a sentiment-based perspective. Okay. So when this whole movement was happening for days on end, the reason I started seeing this candle as pretty much the topping off candle is because, number one, things were way too extended in terms of technicals. Okay. Number two, everyone and their mother started to long up here, while prices were clearly almost at not all-time highs, but critical highs. Okay. And another way I can show you that is if we start looking at, let me see here. Maybe it's this chart over here, okay? You will get to see exactly how I was able to pinpoint why that particular area was the sell area. Okay, so let me see if I can show it on a weekly. Bear with me. The markets or the charts are a little slow right now. Let me see here. I thought it was somewhere over here. Maybe, okay. Let me see here. Maybe on a monthly perspective. Oh, there it is. Okay. All right. So what I was trying to show you guys is, this June candle right here. Okay. So here it is on a technical perspective. All right. Number one, if we start looking at the 20K high that we put in December 2017 with the low around 31.21, prices went up from December 2018 bottom to June 26, 2019, right? and prices hit perfectly at the golden pocket ratio right there, which is around 61.8% to 65%. Okay. And from that, we sold off, right? So that was one of my technical reasons. Other than that, like I explained, it was just the fact that reading the sentiment around the market told me that, hey, it looks like, um, people are way too hyped up here when they are not understanding that they're basically buying into key fib resistance. And people are talking about, Ethereum is going to be $800. It's going to go back to all-time highs, and XRP is going to be $5, and Bitcoin is going to go to 30K. All kinds of garbage. And I knew for the most part how to read sentiment and technicals and be able to get out of the market. And so this is why you see in my post that I gave to my Advantage members that I sold everything, okay, basically at the high, right? And then that's number one. Number two, just recently, okay, I had a lot of, long-term holdings, okay? And I saw that over here in February, okay, I'm gonna show you guys that on a daily basis. Over here in February, when we started topping off, again, we heard the same talk about people who are talk about Ethereum going to 500 bucks, Bitcoin going to 20K by halving, all kinds of garbage, right? Um, and again, same thing. They were buying resistance right here because this was a previous top. And so when people started buying resistance and started talking about alts going to higher highs, right? This is where, again, I started to realize it's time to get out, right? I held some of the projects for almost 2 years. Some of them were kind of at a loss. Some of them were actually significant profits, okay, because I bought into them fairly early, like Link and Tezos and Nexo. Some of these projects, gave me good money, right? So they recovered some of the other money from my, other projects that didn't do so well. But overall, I walked away with almost, 190%, 200% profit on all my holdings for 2 years. I think that's good money. Now, I know people in the crypto space say that, oh, well, if you just held longer, to Link or whatever because it went higher, right? I know Link and Tezos went much higher than where I sold, but I didn't care, right? Because what people didn't realize was this right here was in the making, okay? I didn't even realize this was in the making right here with this kind of drop, but I knew that this was in the making, okay? I knew that a pullback and a significant correction was definitely in the making. Okay, that I can guarantee you. I just didn't know that this would happen. Okay, but you don't know this would happen, and this is why you sell the hype. You let the other people speculate how much higher things could go, but your job is to follow technicals, read the sentiment, the fear, the FOMO in the markets. Okay, I think this is what we do best in our Advantage community. All right. Now, with that being said, where are we and where do we think we're going, right? That's the real question, that's $1 million question. So first things first, I mean, prices of Bitcoin clearly are showing a bit of a bounce, okay? That's obvious, right? We bounced all the way down from almost $3,600. Now we're up almost $2,000. But what does that mean, right? I mean, you could move up price, $3,000, $5,000 if there's really no one on the books. And by the books, I mean, if you start looking at the exchanges across the board, they had so many liquidations across the board that it's pretty much just a joke to move price up and down. A couple $1 million will move you price maybe $50, $100, $200 now. Because the books are so thin. And by the books, I mean the order books right here. So yesterday, when we started seeing the price break down like this, folks, it's so easy to slice down in price because there's no buyers. No one has the balls to step up and buy. And that means that there's bigger players out there who are just not willing to touch this asset right now because it's too risky, especially in an environment that was selling off so aggressively yesterday, okay? So yesterday, luckily, right, at the end of the day, we talked about how the Fed was injecting $1.5 trillion into trying to save the stock market, some of these industries who desperately need bailouts, right? And so we're basically at the point where the Fed is literally having to print money and save people from making these dumb, egregious mistakes. And obviously that's going to be reflected in crypto right now, okay? But crypto is a little bit different because it has really no purpose and no usage in this environment, especially in an environment that is um, really just seeking liquidity from whichever place possible. And by the way, the Fed is stepping in because there is such a lack of liquidity even in the stock market. Okay. And the lack of liquidity tells us that there are still structural issues inside the economy that even the Fed with a $1.5 trillion bailout cannot solve. Okay, it's just not possible at the present moment. All right. So the point is that when you're looking at a market like this, it might now be time to consider maybe cutting off some of your holdings, maybe going into cash, or maybe even looking into different markets. Again, not financial advice, but just letting you guys know that this sort of event, I bet you, is now on the radars of big, hedge fund managers, institution. They're probably looking at this as an asset that may not be worth getting into. I can guarantee you that. No one is looking at this and saying that, oh my God, Bitcoin dropped 50% and then the next day it recovered, almost 30, 40%. No, not really. No one's looking at it like that. People are looking at this as a high risk asset because people who are in GBTC, who are having Bitcoin holdings in terms of spot, I'm pretty sure they're panicked and scared. Okay, that's just a fact, right? Because one, you're starting to see panic across the world with the stock markets basically crashing yesterday, right? And now finally the markets are resuming, right? So now you see pre-market and the futures starting to open positively. But of course you're going to get that, right? I mean, after such a heavy sell-off, there's of course going to be a bounce, right? But does that bounce mean that we're going to go from here and back up here? Not really, at least not yet, right? There's significant levels that the S&P 500 has to reclaim. Like number one, this level right here, okay, 2750, that's number one. Up here around 2830, that's number two. 3030, that's number three. Those are the levels that the S&P 500 needs to show that, okay, now we're ready to maybe start going back up once we start cracking each of these levels. Until then, what we could really be doing is we could be range trading over here for maybe a few weeks, maybe a few months, until the market itself starts to figure out, are things recovering? Is the economy getting back on track? Is the coronavirus contained? Are we solving the underlying issues in the macro global economies, etc.? Okay, I think Bitcoin is going to be heavily dependent on how the stock market does for the next several weeks, maybe even the next several months. Okay, that's kind of my thought process. All right. So anyway, folks, with that being said, what you now want to maybe look out for is, as you can see, clearly price has re-entered into the previous range right here that broke down. Okay, if we could hold this range, okay, we could potentially go back to the range high, which is around $6,200 or so. Okay, again, it has to hold this range, right? This was the range low just yesterday, I think, and that was around $5,600 or so. Okay, so re-entering the range is a very positive sign in my opinion. Okay, but now we need to see if we could go to the range high and then come back down, or if we could just blast past it. But again, that doesn't take away any of the risks associated with Bitcoin. Okay, the severe risk that prices sold off so aggressively yesterday, I'm telling you, this is going to be on people's radar for weeks and months and years. Okay, and even Mike Novogratz, I think, recently said that Bitcoin doesn't have the same appeal that it once did. Right. So if the smartest people in the space are starting to now tell you that, hey, even we are fearful of what could happen to this asset, it might be time for you to start preparing and understanding that maybe reconsider your allocations in the crypto space. Okay. All right, folks, that's pretty much it. Stock market open nicely positive right now, but again, we've seen positive days like this, and then by the end of the day, the market sells off some more. Okay, so do be careful on that. All right. As per EXO, we do see a very nice buyback of 843 million positive delta. But you could see, look at the open interest that dropped off. Now, dropped off almost by 50% in less than 1 day. That tells you that there were just so many long liquidations, and people are just not interested in going long or short in that big drop. So it's really just the fact that, now people are seeing that, man, this asset is just too volatile. Even if you go into where we are right now, right? So on a 30-minute time frame, if you're looking to short right here, your stop is going to have to be way up here around 6,200, 6,300, or maybe even, maybe up here around 59.85 or so. Okay. And then if you're going long, your stop is either over here around 5,000, or maybe over here around just below this wick around $5,300, or way down here around 3,500. So the technicals themselves have not set up in a way where it will be lucrative for you to, as per a risk to reward ratio, to get into trades. Maybe if you start looking on a 1-minute chart, but even that's risky. Who the hell wants to trade off a 1-minute chart? It's just too much stress. Okay. So again, folks, we're going to wait patiently, and we're going to see how price action unfolds itself, and we'll take moves, accordingly, right? So I hope you guys come join CryptoSomniac Advantage community, and with that, I'll leave you to it. Take care, set your stops tight, folks, and I'll talk to y'all soon. All right, cheers.